Good morning, Zemirah.
Good morning, Josh.
That's who I am. I'm Josh, and you're Zemirah, and we're just connecting today. I've been talking with all of our ministers one by one, just so people can get to know them a little bit better, and to kind of talk about this subject of calling. Ministry and calling go together, and all of us have calling, but it's kind of a unique path when people commit themselves to spirituality and then wind up doing something like what you now do for a living. But I'd like to begin by, I love your name, Zemirah, and can you tell us what it means and where it comes from?
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me today. Zemirah is a spiritual name that I chose about 15 years ago, and it comes from Hebrew and Arabic because the root of Zemirah is Zamir, which is a morning lark. And when I was bestowed with this spiritual name, it has a meaning joyfulness and music merged together, so joyful melody. And you could see how that's a connection with the Zamir, the morning lark. And the reason being is that it's very much linked to my calling in ministry. And that is that essence of joyfulness and the searching for all things spiritual that support that, as well as music, because I was rooted in music instruction and music sharing from a really early age.
I love that. Well, I love Zemirah, and it suits you really well. I've never known you by any other name by that. And it's true as well that you have another spiritual name.
I do, and that's Bismillah in the Sufi path, which I came across maybe 10 or so years ago through the Dances of Universal Peace. I was very called to deepen in the Sufi studies, mostly because it is interfaith in nature and it's more of a philosophy, a philosophical approach to spirituality. And so when I became initiated on the Sufi path, my teacher bestowed upon me Bismillah, which means literally we begin in the name of God again and again. So you'll see often the word Bismillah in many Sufi chants and many Sufi phrases and used throughout the teachings of Sufism because it means we begin in the name of God.
I love those names. And for you, are they all one identity when you're in these names, or does it change? Like, oh, I'm Zemirah right now. I'm whatever else may come forward.
That's such a good question. I think they're pretty much merged at this point because I think it takes a while too. When you step into a name, it really does, I believe, have a vibrational quality to it, and it has a vibrational impact upon your life. And when I stepped into using both of these names in various communities, I noticed shifts in my own consciousness and in my own way of being because of the essence that the name carries and in hearing it in reference to oneself. So yeah, I think they're pretty much integrated now. I feel as if I am Zemirah. And Bismillah, I mostly use just when I'm in the Sufi community, and it does carry that spiritual reference to the passages of Sufism and the Arabic name. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Awesome. My experience of you, Zemirah, and I think people get into ministry for all sorts of different reasons, but one of the things I admire most about you is, I would almost call it Socratic in the sense of your love of wisdom. The spiritual hunger that I see emanates from you is, like a fire that I know is never going to go out, and I hope you receive that as an honoring, and I hope you resonate with it. But you just want to know where this love of learning, of spiritual growth, of deepening, of understanding. You are so well read, and you're always into something from a place of humility too, not like expertise, just learning. And so I want to know where did that come from as we enter into this discussion about calling.
That's an interesting question. I'm not exactly sure where it came from because I feel it's just like part of my soul, like I was born that way. There's a Gaga song, I think, Born That Way. But I think of that book when we were kids that we read, The Little Hungry Caterpillar. And that's kind of how it's always been. There's always just been this thirst and this hunger for what is the nature of being, and I just can't, you're right. I just can't get enough. There's a lot of songs built into my response. I think I just can't get enough.
That was Depeche Mode.
Exactly. Depeche Mode, college years. But I think it's always been there. There's just this, I think what happens for me when I really immerse in spiritual teachings and spiritual study is that you enter that space of timelessness. And for me, there is never enough time. I mean, 2 hours goes by and it's like 1 minute, and you're like, how did that happen? Because there's just this depth and I feel fueled by it. It's my spiritual fuel, like jet fuel. And whenever I'm deeply in those teachings, it's like I can completely fall. And then there is no Zemirah, right? There's no Bismillah. There's no names. There's none of that. There's just this sense of communion. And for me, that's what the hunger is wanting to commune with the divine, wanting to be with the beloved, because there's an energy, a vibrational quality to that just replenishes. It's like
love
nutrients.
I like it. And for me, I'm very similar too. I'm reading all the time, and there's part of it that's just about my human process of getting out of the box. I'm reading these spiritual truths. I'm wanting to read people who are smarter than I am so that I can think in new ways. And the byproduct that for me sometimes is I experience God. I turned 40 a couple years back, and there were some video presentations. Well, it's 3 years back now. And Bobby Dart, who usually records our podcast, he gave a video message, and he said something that made me laugh because it is so true. He goes, Josh, you're not wise, but you say wise things. It's
so true.
And it's true about me, just in my experience, because I do, in some ways, ministries hermeneutics. It's reading things and expressing it to people. But what I love about you is that your studies bring you closer to God, right? That's what I'm hearing, and it helped you kind of embody that. Because I would wonder as well, I'm hearing from a young age this love for knowledge, but I also know that you're someone who's committed to your deepening and grows and has been initiated into these names. So I'm guessing some of this comes from a sense of sometimes feeling broken or not enough or stumbling or being called to shed the skin that you're in to step into. And so I'm guessing that's an important part of your calling that has led you into the ministry you are now.
100%. I love how you brought up the two pathways, the two sides of the coin, kind of, if you will, to that hunger, right? There's that hunger to commune, that hunger for joyfulness, but absolutely, I haven't had a path that hasn't had stones, pebbles, boulders, massive crevices,
giant spikes,
massive spikes in it. And I think that is something that propels us deeper, because pain is a good motivator, as well as we know suffering. The sense of when I commune with spirit, when I'm in communion with God, then I am transcending the suffering. But you have to meet that pain, I think, so much of the way. So I've had a path that's been fraught with pebbles and instigators, if you will, shadow spaces that have also been propelled me into those studies as well. Absolutely, 100%.
This is an unfair question, so I'm just throwing it at you. It's what is the story of God's calling in your life?
The story of God's calling. Well, it's funny because I grew up on a farm in the middle of absolutely nowhere, Illinois, and it's not nowhere. It's the middle of a cornfield. I grew up in the middle of a cornfield in Illinois, and we had church as a focal point of our community. It was the structure of our community engagement. It was where we went to be with our friends, because I didn't have neighbors. I know you might be wondering how I have social skills at all, but they did come, and mostly they came through Vacation Bible School in the summer times. And it was a United Methodist church. It was a little tiny one-room schoolhouse in the countryside. But I have to tell you that in the midst of our sort of isolated growing up in the cornfields, it was an oasis for me. I would go in there and we would shift through a bunch of ministers. They'd be almost like traveling ministers, and they would come and they'd stay for a while, and then they'd be off to the next congregation. And one in particular came, and he was so creative that he set me on fire for the creativity of God. And for instance, he would take the scriptures and he would make them like living books of relevance, you know? And so I remember he United Methodist turned 200 or something. He had this cake with 200 candles. I mean, the church almost burned down, but he lit it on fire. But I think what he also was doing is he created a container where we all felt, even in the midst of whatever challenges, and there's some strange, emotional things that I think go on in isolated places. And whatever challenges were going on in our life, in our community, in our family lives, that in the midst of those spiritual moments, it all went away and there was a sense of connection. Candlelight services would be another one where we'd all hold hands around this little tiny church room. And I'd feel that just for a little bit, it was almost enchanting. That sense of the divine was here. It was palpable. It was not ineffable. It wasn't unexplainable. It was something that could be touched and tangible and felt. So he brought it in. And I'd say that's where a bit of the calling was ignited for me first, was that sense of connection and community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in a way that God spoke to you.
The way that God spoke to me, was through seeing it in that connection with everyone. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I did get a sense the next calling, and I was put on stage to kind of sing and do, Christmas music. I played piano, so I played, and my mom was the choir director. My dad was my Sunday school teacher. I mean, we were super infused in church. We were church mice, and we were always in church. But I'd say that the calling came from always having a sense that without this, I don't feel real. Like I don't feel like the real bunny, the velveteen rabbit. Like I just felt like this is what makes life feel real to me. Mm-hmm. So that was the first little bit of, I guess you could call it God spoke to me, but it was more like I felt it.
And wow, is that part of your ministry, as I see it expressed here at Mile High Church and beyond, is helping to create that experience for people. You take it very seriously, not while not taking yourself seriously, which is something I really like about you.
Thank you, Josh.
Frederick Buechner, talks about listening to your life and listening to God. And one of the things he says for those of us who are lost or maybe even separate from God or not believing in God is, watch out for those moments of unexpected tears, that hit you in unique moments, watching a movie, sitting alone outside and it comes upon you. And that's what I thought about when you were sharing about those candle lightings and things. There is something really real there that is expressed in ritual, but not in our train of thought. And I love that experience would continue to guide you in your life. At what time did you say, yes, minister, that's the thing?
I didn't say, yes, minister, that's the thing until after my practitioner training, really. I had an inkling of, yes, minister, that's the thing when I was 15 years old. But then I chose the path of psychology and working in the school system instead. And I think there was always a little bit of a question, even, when you get the tap on the shoulder and you're like, oh, I don't think so. I don't think I qualified for that. I mean, have you taken a look at some of the stumbling blocks in the path, like that I'm not worthy kind of sense, like, oh, there's too much there's too much shadow in this space for me to be sharing in that way. And so maybe that's why I said, oh, yes, psychology. And then I can work all these pathways of learning and still support other people with challenges. And that was always a call. But even in psychology, I always gravitated towards the sense of how do I teach kids mindfulness? How do I bring a sense of spirituality in a way in a secular world and make it relevant and also make it digestible so it's not offensive to the system from which it's being shared? So that was always the thing. My small girls groups in the schools always were about how do I bring them into a sense of connection within themselves, like how do I make it so that the tough stuff of their life is not the definition of who they are, but just the story that they're experiencing, but that they know a sense of who they are beyond the story. So that was always the mission. But after practitioner training, I was like, oh, I want to eat and breathe and drink these teachings as much as I can in every way of my life. So how can I do that? So that's when it really became sort of more official.
Well, I love that. And, that pragmatic part of the last thing you said, which is, one of the best parts of ministry is, at some level we get paid for doing what we love to do. Mm-hmm. And it's so great when your own commitment to growth and deepening, the natural byproduct of it is that it helps other people. And, maybe this is my last question for you today, but it's for those who are listening, who are wanting to better connect with their calling, bring it forth, fulfill it, or just discover themselves, what is your advice to them?
I would say whatever lights your soul on fire, whatever takes you into that timeless place, whatever you experience in life that brings you for even a little bit beyond the mundane, but also allows you to connect with the mundane in a way that sets your heart on fire, I think there's clues there, that there's a sense in there for what is it that you're here to share. And yes, we hope that we get paid for this doing what we love, but I think any sort of connection with what we love and being able to share that is a vibrational blessing, both to ourselves and those around us. So if it brings you that vibration of, I don't call it oneness, call it joy, call it, set my soul on fire for life. If that brings that, anything that brings that, there's a little clue there. Mm-hmm. And I'd say just fall into it. Ask, how can this be fed and grown and expanded in my life, and show me the way, because I think when we become available to it, it starts working its way through us. So I just say, and mine wasn't an overnight thing. It was 25 years of, this isn't quite it, but man, I need to drink this stuff on my lunch hour in order to be happy. And it was just keep plugging along with that tenacity of spirit, that keeps you going. Because I don't believe it is necessarily like I find it and the next day it's bestowed upon me. But I think if we continue walking it just like the, masterpiece inside the marble that, who is it, Michelangelo carved out David. That's how it happens in our own life. We just keep chipping and noticing those sparks, and eventually you get more of the statue.
Awesome. Well, your tenacity of spirit would be one of my definitions of who you are. And I'm so grateful for the tenacity of spirit that you bring to the world, and especially bring to Mile High Church. It's just adding such a unique and powerful element that, gives me no sense but that we're headed in a forward and really exciting direction with your leadership and presence. So thanks for who you are and all that you bring here.
Oh, well, likewise, Josh. Thank you so much as well. And I know that being here is truly one of the greatest blessings, not just of my life, but I really feel like this entire community is a blessing to the world. And so it does set me on fire, and it is my absolute joy to be a part of it. So thank you for your invitation to be here.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.